Dear American friends, I'm very glad that I can address you the greeting speech. And I think that now the world is passing through a very critical moment that concerns not only us, Russians or Europeans, that concerns as well, I think, every living man or woman, and that concerns also American people. The actual modern world is losing its identity. The culture, the civilization is in great danger. And I think maybe it is greatest danger in all our human history. Because the development of the actual technological, modern, materialistic, atheistic, secular civilization has led the humanity to the moment, to the point where under question is put the human being as such. So now we are losing our human identity, coming to the last point of post-human transformation. And I consider that the reason for this degradation, the reason of this fall, of this decay, of this collapse, is individualistic, modern, liberal ideology. That is very important to understand what liberalism really means. The essence, the very essence of liberal ideology affirms that human individuality is the measure of the things. Not human being, not the man, but individual. And that is the concept that try to liberate this individual from any existing links with community, with collective identity. The essence of the liberal ideology is invitation of liberation, to liberate the individual from any kind of collective identity. That began from the liberation of from the church, from the religious links and ties. And the religion was proclaimed to be individual choice. If religion depends from the purely individual decision, we refuse to recognize the collective identity. So the church becomes something optional, something relative. And that was the first blow that has received European Christian society from the beginning of the modern era and the beginning of the liberal ideology. And after that, that was the nation or ethnic community that was as well dismembered by liberalism, because any existing collectivity was conceived to be the sum of the parts, and a constitutive role is playing here by the atomic individual part. And if the part is the whole thing, so you can create, starting from these parts, any kind of society. Society and collective identity becomes as well optional and a result of purely individual decision. So that was the next step. In this conception, church or nation or ethnic group or community is considered to be something conventional. We can organize, starting from the individual, one kind of church or religion, one kind of nation, but we could easily dismember them and create something other instead of the first form. So everything becomes optional and becomes the result of purely individual decision. And that is the next point in this liberal agenda was gender politics, because liberals, after the moment of the victory, of their victory over church, over nation, and proclaiming human rights and world civil society instead of national society, they have discovered, the liberals have discovered that the sexual identity is as well something collective. And if you are man or if you are woman, that is a kind of shared identity. But individualism is against this shared identity, because every individual could freely choose any kind of this collective identity. And that was the time of the gender politics. After destruction of the church or religious identity, national identity, after proclaiming civil society and one world human rights agenda, that was the time and the turn of the gender politics. And now to be man or to be woman is as well optional choice or optional, maybe circumstantial solution or condition, precisely as is the case with religious identity or national identity. So you could choose to be Christian, you could choose to be American, you could choose to be woman or the man. All that is completely logic from liberal standpoint of view. And we are now here, gender politics as the main strategy of liberalism that is winning on the world scale. Maybe we could discuss which country gains more in this progress of the liberal agenda, but that is sure that that is something that is more important for the global liberal elite than national interest of USA or Russia or Europe. It is kind of globalist elite that imposes this liberal agenda on everybody, destroying any form of collective identity. And in this individualist strategy, American society, in its collective dimension and communitarian dimension, as the community of Anglo-Saxon or European groups, settlers that have created the United States, now is endangered, as well as other ethnic or cultural or historic collectivities. So American people is endangered in the same way and in the same measure, and maybe more than the rest of the humanity. So America is winning maybe on the strategical, geopolitical, international scale, but inside of American people, that's a growing abyss. And that is a kind of degradation, the great inner catastrophe of Americans' identity that is coming nearer to everybody of you and everybody of us, because it is universal phenomenon. The victory of the liberals on the world scale is universal phenomenon. You are in the center of this situation. We are on the periphery. So we could consider present struggle as the kind of tension or maybe Cold War between the West and Russia, or the West and the rest. But in the truth, that is something other. That is inner global struggle between liberal agenda that destroy nations, churches, religious identity, Christian, white people, not white people, Islamic or Orthodox, and the forces or the groups of the people who don't agree with this global course of the liberal elites. So we are on the same side. It is not the problem, American identity against Russian identity, Western societies against Eurasian societies. The problem is quite different. The problem is that we are approaching the moment of the great collapse of the man, because the essence of the man was based on the collective identity. We are men because we are all men, not individually. We are men as something whole, as something, as some whole thing. And that is very important, that with these gender politics that is prevailing in the West, and we Russians, we are trying to oppose to this gender politics, as well as we are trying to oppose to the liberal agenda as such. That is not the last, but step in the global liberal strategy. The last step will be the end of the human identity, because the individual will be opposed to human individual, because to be man, to be human is as well collective identity, and it should be made optional choice, as today to be man or woman, to be woman is optional choice. Tomorrow the problem or the situation will be following. You will have the right to choose your species, to choose your belongingness to some to be human or not to be human. So your individual right in the post-humanist, humanitarian society will be the free choice to choose or to find or to imagine your collective identity, including to be man or not to be man or not to be human. That is the last step, and that is the most dangerous challenge that we will have in the near future. It is transhumanist, post-humanist future. And the liberal agenda will put us inevitably in this situation. Today we are struggling to conserve our sexual identity, to rest man or woman, and that is not that is solved already in the West, because as Hillary Clinton has said, that gender politics is the most important ideological thesis, the most important ideological point in global expansion of American way of life. So now for the American elite, political elite, to promote gender agenda is most important ideological goal. So that is already fact. And we Russians, we consider the West as the pole of this gender politics. It's completely justified. But tomorrow, the same globalist elite, if they continue, and they will I am absolutely sure they will continue the same strategy, they will declare the necessity to impose post-human identity and to render, to make human identity as something optional. So now we are confronting with this challenge, and not the problem of Russians against Americans, the Westerns against the Westerns, and so on. I think that the problem is deeper, and this time the confrontation between the West and the Russia, the Putin's Russia, is the confrontation between the post-modernity and post-human society advancing, and the human society, traditional society, conservative society. There are two Weltanschauungen, two visions of the world, and not only two societies, two countries, two competing geopolitical bodies. It's something deeper than that. And I think that in the United States of America, that there should be some groups of people that understand the seriousness of this challenge, and they are going to react against that, defending American values, defending American identity, defending American tradition, not Russian. You could hate us, you could be indifferent toward Russians, but that is secondary. That is no problem to be pro-Putin, support Putin, or to be against him. What is much more important to defend American identity, Christian identity, ethnic identity, cultural identity, sexual identity, or to be on the other side, on the side of the liberal globalist elites that now is approaching these elites to the last stage of creating of the world government that will enslave everybody on the earth, not only us. Now we are under direct attack of this globalization of the world government. But maybe you will be the first victim of these globalist elites, and not us, because we are opposing, we are struggling against that. Maybe we will lose, who knows? Maybe we will win with God's help. But you understand, you remark less than us as we do this danger, and only the vanguard people, the American thinker, American people who defend American identity, maybe they understand better than others the real amount of the danger you are dealing with, and everybody in the world now is dealing with. So my idea is not to give geopolitical lesson to American people. You have your own geopolitical agenda, and it is normal and logical that you follow this agenda. But I would like to attract your attention to real challenge we are dealing with. So this challenge and the problem and the danger and the catastrophe is the ruling liberal globalist elite that tries to create world government, destroying any kind of organic community, organic society with prevailing collective identities. So the destruction of the church and Christian civilization, destruction of the nations or ethnic cultures, destruction of the sexual identity, and affirming instead of it the gender politics, is the penultimate stage of the final catastrophe that's approaching. It is destruction of human identity. All these are stages of the same process, of the same so-called progress that is a kind of real fall in the abyss. And I think the last point of my message is that we couldn't save the human identity. We couldn't save our sexual identity. We couldn't save our ethnical identity or religious identity without saving all this at the same time. That if the stages of degradation were in the consequence, now we need to restore all levels of this collective identity. So we need to oppose to liberalism in its essence, defending any kind of collective identity, any form of collective identity. And I don't see how we could succeed in that without having a new kind of theory, anti-liberal theory, but not fascist nor communist theory belonging to the past. We need to look into the future, and we need to give to the liberal challenge new answer. I suppose that this answer could appear only from the main context of the fourth political theory that I consider to be invitation to create, to imagine new alternative to this liberal agenda. And I think that in the context, in the frame of the fourth political theory, we could not impose our understanding of what we need. Nor Russians, nor not Europeans. It should be created. It should be born in our minds, in our spirits. This answer to the liberal challenge. And I think that we need to imagine, to create, to elaborate, to construct American version of fourth political theory that could be very different from Russian form, or European, or Islamic, or Iranian, or Chinese. Everybody of us needs alternative, but everybody of us, every nation needs its own alternative. It should be constructed basing of the concrete historical, cultural, religious, spiritual experience of everybody of us. So we need together create different and differentiated types of the fourth political theory, and I think that Americans should imagine, should construct this fourth political theory in its American version by themselves. So I would like to thank you for your attention, and I think that beyond any form of hostilities, beyond of misunderstanding between our peoples, we shouldn't blame each other. We shouldn't be Americanophobic or Russophobic. The real guilt is on the side of the liberal, internationalist, globalist elites that whose behavior isn't a reflection of American interests or Western interests. These elite proceed its own agenda that goes against American interests, against American people, destroying any kind of the cultural organic identity in the world. So we have the common enemy, and against this common enemy, whose name is liberal globalist elites, trying to construct Babylon's Tower, a kind of world government, we need to fight together, to try to understand together in the context of the fourth political theory. I wish you best success of your Congress, and I would like to stress the last point, that I think that is necessary to overcome and to go beyond the narrow horizons of the political ideologies that doesn't correspond the reality. We need to put aside, we need to forget about communist solutions of anti-liberal strategy, or racist or fascist or nationalist solution. We need to imagine something different. That is I am calling that fourth political theory. So I wish you courage, and I wish you success in this transcendental act of overcoming the old impasses of the political ideology and successes in the creating new platform in order to save America from the globalist elite that have elites that have usurped, that have seized American people as a hostage. So I wish good luck to any real and honest American man.